Accept your fate, pig. I would say this is my favorite of all the misogynistic comments I've received on this video. A video in which I talk about a life crisis I've had this past year. Since, due to health problems, I've had to make difficult decisions about my work, my daily life, my goals, and even my identity. And you might say, Claudia Nicolasa Psychologia, what does that have to do with Manosphere comments? I don't even know what to call it. Because on the cover I put my turning 30 crisis. What I share in the video has absolutely nothing to do with turning 30. I have zero worries, zero ideas or beliefs formed around getting older. For me, it's just a number, and what matters most is the quality of your life and how satisfied you are with your decisions. But the thing is, as a content creator, I can tell you that sometimes choosing the thumbnail and titles for YouTube is complicated. You must pick 3 words and an image to capture everything discussed in a video that could be 30 minutes long, something eye-catching and summarizing the content. Something that sparks curiosity and that the viewer can relate to. So I said, well, I'm going to put my turning 30 crisis. Since it's a popular concept that everyone knows, maybe it will resonate with them. But anyway, if someone clicks on the video, the first thing they'll hear is me clarifying that it has nothing to do with age. That everyone goes through several crises throughout their lives, and it can happen at any time and in any area. Naively, I never thought that putting the number 30 next to my photo, being a woman, would bring so many ridiculous comments. Lie to yourself all you want, but what really happened is that you've already hit the wall. You've already crossed a line where there's no turning back. All your achievements and everything you say and do won't do you any good because you won't have any legacy to leave in this world. Because if you're interested in men, the only ones who will notice you will be at least 50 years old. You've already reached the existential crisis where your biology is demanding something you can no longer do. I seem to have become infertile. That's the real reason you feel bad. And you, with your demagogy and your appeal to authority that you always use, try to rationalize this when it's really not something rational because it's biological. That's why what you say in this video makes me laugh so much. As you know, I've been reading fewer comments lately, not just due to lack of time, but also to protect my mental health. Otherwise, I'd face 50 insults, mockery, accusations, and threats daily. But since this was a more personal, more intimate, more reflective video, and since I knew that many people would relate to it, I've been taking time to read and respond to comments these days. Most of them are wonderful, just like the people in this community in general. Sensitive, thoughtful, empathetic, sharing similar experiences they've had in their careers, in their relationships, and so on. And as I was calmly reading the comments, I came across some people who seemed to have landed from a very distant galaxy and who came, well, to bring me very important messages from their planet. Do you have a family and children? If the answer is no, the problem is that you've hit the wall and your body knows it. Your biological clock is ticking and it's telling you that no career success can make up for being a mother. You miss the signs because you're following the mindset they instilled that you must succeed. What these aliens are basically saying is that my real problem is that I'm about to turn 30, my time is running out, and no man will want to be with me. Damn, thanks. I've spent over 8 years studying, training, gaining experience in clinical practice, paying for therapy, introspecting, working on personal development. How could I not realize that what was really happening was that my body was complaining because I haven't fulfilled my mission to find a husband and let him impregnate me? So guys, I've decided to give up all my projects, put everything on hold, quit psychology, and I've put out an ad in case some decent man is willing to forgive my old age and inseminate me. Well, jokes aside now. I'm not sharing this video because the comments hurt me. In fact, I find them so ridiculous that part of me doesn't take this seriously. They make me laugh. But another part of me gets pretty worried when I read this, because these are real people who wrote it. There are people in the world who still think this way today. Well, in this case, there are men who think this way because it turns out all the users are men. And what worries me, and the reason why I'm making this video, is because unfortunately there are women who later read and hear these things, and they sink in. Because we all want to feel valuable, loved, accepted. We want to feel like we're doing things right. And if at some point you feel insecure, rejected, not valuable, confused, a message that toxic at just the right moment can really sink in and lead you to make very bad decisions. So in this video, we're going to expose these comments and we're going to counter them. Not to convince these aliens, because these ideas are already their identity. They're their defense against feeling rejected, ignored, invisible to the world. They're so angry that these ideas give them security, they give them control. They feel like they're rising above their distress. This video isn't for them, but for those people who, for whatever reason, can't find a partner, feel insecure, rejected, and at some point have heard these messages because unfortunately they're very popular on social media. And they start to confuse us about what a man is, what a woman is, what makes each one valuable, how your relationship should be, how you should behave. So, let's get into the video. Look, I'm not against evolutionary psychology. In fact, back in 2019, I was already uploading videos here on YouTube talking about evolutionary psychology. I talked about reproductive value, about the difference between men and women when it comes to choosing a reproductive partner. I talked about intersexual competition, intrasexual competition. I have a book in which I explain all these arguments, theories, and experiments in a rational and scientific way, the ones that these groups have appropriated, the Manosphere, Red Pill, and so on. I don't even know what to call them. They have used them to build a deterministic and categorical system of ideas about how a man should be, how a woman should be, how they behave, and how their relationship should be. I'm one of the few psychologists trained in evolutionary psychology who discuss it publicly. I haven't found any others, at least among Spanish speakers. And in fact, over these years, I have received a lot of criticism for sharing these theories, experiments, and so on. Like the studies that show people look for fertility in women or status in men. And I was criticized for talking about this. Findings like these are called biologism, sexism, and are said to ignore the huge impact that each individual's unique life experiences and learning have. Obviously, I never presented this information as something condemning, definitive, or absolute, but rather as just one more ingredient in that fascinating and complex salad that is being human. Well, the thing is that years later, I'm seeing how a group of people have taken these ideas and are creating a pretty dangerous collective delusion. Women are designed to be mothers. If you don't have children, you won't feel complete. Let's see, yes, women are designed to be mothers, and men are designed to be fathers. Yes, we have a reproductive system that is set up for us to reproduce. That's correct. Human beings are designed to survive and reproduce. Now, just because an organism is designed to be able to do something doesn't mean that's its only purpose. Nor does it mean it's something necessary or essential. Having a biological capability doesn't imply an existential obligation. When someone says women are designed to be mothers, what they're really saying is that everything else a woman can be, professional, creator, lover, explorer, thinker, is irrelevant, secondary, useless, and we're reduced to little more than a walking oven. And beyond the joke, the serious thing is that there are women who hear this and internalize it. Because when a message is repeated enough, we know that even if it's absurd, it starts to feel true. And look, I'm aware that there are differences at the brain level and at the physiological level between men and women. I'm not going to deny a material reality. And not all of these differences can be explained by culture and socialization. Some of them are biological. For example, even though I go to the gym and lift weights, most random men who don't train are still stronger than me. So yes, there are usually some differences. But that doesn't mean that all men are the same or that all women are the same. And it definitely doesn't mean that each one has a specific role or should be a certain way. This is one of the serious mistakes these women are making. These arguments that rely on evolutionary psychology, confusing tendencies with destiny. David Buss himself, an author I highly recommend you read if you're interested in evolutionary psychology, said that these patterns are not deterministic, but warned that cultural contexts change mating strategies. Clearly, the goal here is to try to impose on women that their only aspiration is motherhood. It's reducing their identity to a function, and in this way, to regain power over them. And well, about being complete. Do you know how many married women with children I know who aren't happy? And I also know many who are happy. I know women without children or partners who are happy, and others who aren't. Correlation doesn't mean causation. I have women close to me who are my age, who have decided to dedicate themselves to motherhood. And if this is consistent with who they are and what they want, and mind you, they are financially protected, good for them. I have absolutely nothing against that lifestyle. I'm not programmed to reject men or marriage or children. There are many positions and lifestyles between the extremes of being a housewife and being, as they say, a lonely, abandoned woman surrounded by cats who hates men. But that's not the case. In the minds of these aliens, there are only two options, and since they've seen that I'm a hardworking, independent, and ambitious person, they need to put me in that group. Because in their minds, there are only two types of women. This brings us to the second part of the comment. Now you're successful. So what? No man cares. They just want a woman who isn't a pain in the neck, behaves well in public, and waits for them with dinner ready. And that ... she's young enough to have children. Now you're successful and no man cares. They just want a woman who isn't a pain in the ass, acts properly in public, and waits at home with dinner ready. I didn't know YouTube had time travel. We've gone back 100 years in an instant for free. How wonderful. How sad it is to see relationships in such an instrumental and selfish way. I don't choose you for your personality, your qualities, your knowledge, your experiences, your values because I admire you, or for what we can build together. I choose you because you are useful to me, because you serve a purpose, because you don't bother me. I look for a mother in you, a cleaner, an oven, a vase that doesn't speak and looks good with the furniture. And here I want to pause and address the women who are watching this video. I know these kinds of messages are on the rise and they make a lot of noise. And this can make us think that all men think this way and are like this. Really, don't make that mistake. It's just as absurd for these aliens to think that all women are the same and have a specific role, as it is for you, after seeing these comments, to conclude that all men are bad people or can't be trusted or whatever. I'm saying this because I see a lot of women nowadays who are afraid to interact and get to know men, because they think they're going to run into this, garbage. But no, really, there are many men who are empathetic, sensitive, sensible, and who don't need to look for a certain type of woman just to protect their own insecurities. There are many men who are looking for someone to share with, to grow with, to learn with. They are looking for a life partner, someone to admire, someone who admires them. And those men are neither betas, nor weak, nor cowards. There's something called balance. And that balance consists of having both that expressive side and that instrumental side developed. Let me explain, and this is very interesting. Psychology has studied what is popularly called feminine or masculine. And what we have typically called feminine traits are traits of expressiveness or communal traits. Not only did these researchers see, quite a few years ago, that most of these traits were learned, but they also studied the mental health of these subjects and compared it with the scores they got on these two dimensions. And guess what? The healthiest subjects showed quite a bit of balance between this dimension of instrumentality and this dimension of expressiveness. People who are independent, who are proactive, but who are also empathetic and sensitive to the needs of others. People who integrate both types of traits, that is, who are androgynous in the psychological sense, showed higher self-esteem, social adaptation, emotional flexibility, and greater overall well-being. Do you want to know how you score? I'm going to show you these traits on the screen, and I want you to pause the video so you can choose and write down the 10 traits that represent you the most. Now that you have your 10 traits, I want you to count how many belong to the instrumentality category and how many to the expressiveness category. Do you have it? Now multiply each number by 10, and there you have the percentage of how balanced you are. What we see is that these extraterrestrial discourses we're talking about promote the idea that men have to score 100% on instrumentality and women have to score 100% on expressiveness, scoring a big fat 0 in the other dimension. In this way, each person has an assigned role, totally differentiated and complementary. And listen, I know couples who are like this, and they work wonderfully. A couple where you see the man and he's all instrumentality, and you see her and she's all expressiveness. But as I was saying, besides the fact that in terms of mental health, the most balanced thing is to have this balance, the fact that some couples work this way doesn't mean that all of them have to work like that. Individuals who have a fairly balanced score in these two dimensions are most likely to find that the partner who suits them best is also someone balanced in that sense. And this isn't about what's better or worse, but about each person finding the relationship and the person that fits them in a healthy and coherent way. As a psychologist, if you have too much of one dimension and too little of the other, what I'm going to recommend is that you try to work on being balanced. But of course, what I'm not going to do is get involved in your relationship and tell you how each of you should be. And I'm really sorry to disappoint these aliens who, in order for my case to fit into their theory, have to assume that I'm single, but I've been living with my partner for several years now. He's a balanced individual like me. We can be talking about our businesses, about our projects, both of us very focused on producing and solving things, and we can also talk about our emotions, reflect, understand each other, and take care of each other emotionally. I feel like telling these aliens that not all men are looking for compliant and submissive women. But anyway, it's not like I'm single, so that doesn't matter at all. Having a partner or not doesn't make you more valuable. Nor is it an argument to dismantle these kinds of speeches. I'm sharing this personal information so we can see the level of projection and irrationality that minds contaminated with these ideas have. Without having any information about my personal life, they boldly and shamelessly assume the version that fits their beliefs. It's important to understand this. Because look, if they can so boldly and confidently claim something about my life that is very easy to disprove, just imagine how much distortion and how many fictional ideas they might be spreading about more complex topics. Sadly, people in vulnerable situations or seeking answers may believe them. As the saying goes, what John says about Peter says more about John than about Peter. Pure projection, irrationality, and the need to confirm your own beliefs, so no. Having a partner at 30 doesn't mean you'll always be happy, or that everything will always work out perfectly, nor does it protect you from any kind of problem or discomfort in life. You can find love at any time, and even if you marry, your partner could pass away years later. You can get married, you can have children, and then there could be a breakup because of incompatibilities, problems, or even because of infidelity. Because we could also point out that these arguments only focus on the traits that a man and a woman should have to be considered valuable in the dating market. But if that were enough, all couples would have always been super happy, because that's what has traditionally always been sought after, and that's how it has always worked. Yes, from evolutionary psychology, we know that elements like fertility or social status are attractive, but attraction is not the same as falling in love. And it's definitely not a predictor of a healthy, strong, and happy bond. Those are elements that have been shown to generate attraction. It's not the only factor in choosing a partner, and it's certainly not a predictor of whether the relationship will work. You could marry and later find out you can't have children. Getting married and having kids at 30 doesn't guarantee anything. The thing is, these people are so caught up in their own fantasy that they assume what my romantic and intimate reality is based on the codes they follow. In their minds, a woman who is about to turn 30 and has developed professionally is the same as a woman who has no value and whom no man will approach. Just look at how programmed they are, and how they project their ideas onto others. But again, even if I were single or a lesbian or a widow or had 10 children, their message doesn't have more or less validity depending on my particular situation. Anyway, the paradox is that many of these narratives present themselves as a defense of male nature, but deep down what they really hide is fear. Fear of sharing power, fear of not knowing who you are, if women no longer need your approval, fear of not knowing what to contribute to the relationship. If women are already contributing what you were supposed to, let's move to another comment. I hope you read this for your own good. Unlike the other comments, here I'm going to tell you the truth you don't want to hear, but it's time you did. It should have happened a while ago. And let this be an example for others so they can learn and not make the same serious mistake. At least this person isn't attacking or being hateful, but is trying to help based on their beliefs, and I appreciate it. Guys, I'm about to turn 30. I have many years ahead and want to be a mother someday. My mom had me at 30 and 36. Are we crazy? They're commenting as if I were about to turn, I don't know, 46 or 50 years old, and I was making a video about how I've just discovered that my dream is to be a mother. We're not even talking about anything related to motherhood, and I'm 29 years old. Honestly, it's just so absurd. Again, I'm not going to deny biological reality. Obviously, your fertility changes as you get older. And if your biggest dream and your top priority in the world is to have 4 or 5 kids, then obviously the sooner you start, the better. That's just how it is. But that's why the word priorities exists. There are people who prioritize starting a family, people who prioritize developing in a sport, people who prioritize enjoying life and having fun, and people who, like me, prioritize our professional careers. But I am going to say something. Given the current economic situation, I think young people are having difficulties, and especially women, if both developing professionally and starting a big family are important goals. I think that, given the situation we're living in, those two goals are a bit incompatible. Not completely, but it's true that there are certain difficulties in being able to pursue both. And yes, it's a reality that we're seeing people, especially women, as the years go by, when they want to become mothers or parents, they face difficulties because they've used those years to focus more on their careers. And yes, there are women who don't find a suitable partner and the years go by and they face important dilemmas. I know these realities, I don't deny them, and they are difficult situations. But what is the solution that these arguments propose? Should you settle for the first partner who comes along just because supposedly your value disappears as soon as you're no longer in your early 20s? Should you abandon your dreams out of fear you'll regret not having children sooner? If your priority in life is to be a mother, and you soon find a partner you really like and who is great, and you know exactly what you want, then go for it, that's wonderful. But please, always check what your values are, what your desires are, what you really want, not what others might be telling you that you should want, and this goes both ways. Maybe you think you have to build an amazing professional career because you've seen out there that you have to be a titan at work to be valuable. But it turns out that for you, that's not relevant. And you do it out of fear of not being enough or not fitting in with what you hear. Any decision is valid if it aligns with who you are and what you feel. You're not a man. In the beginning of the video, all you've talked about are men's things. Discipline, achievements, business, blah blah blah, at the expense of your own health and your own time. You're already over 30, completely neglecting your feminine side, socializing, looking for a husband, building a safe network of contacts, and so on. Even worse, you've used your femininity, like your body and appearance, for the wrong reasons, always related to those masculine issues. I didn't realize my hair got me my master's degrees. Well, according to this person, I should have used my youth and my beauty to find a man to support me. Thank goodness my mother, since I was very young, taught me, you have to be financially independent, never depend on anyone. And not depending on anyone doesn't just apply to your partner. You hit the wall at 30 and obviously your own body that you've taken such good care of just can't keep living in this perpetual self-deception. Your biggest mistake was thinking you could do everything on your own. And no one in this world achieves things alone, especially a being of light who bleeds every month. A being of light who bleeds every month. I think that's how I'm going to introduce myself from now on. What you should have done is look for a good older man who could support and assist you on your path of personal growth, since for that you did have an expiration date. Your 30s, in case that wasn't clear. And for everything else, no. Psychology wasn't going to make your businesses disappear, they weren't going to run away. But your years from your 20s to your 30s, absolutely yes, they're never coming back. No matter how much money or how many businesses you have, you can't buy time, and a woman's time is even more valuable than a man's. A woman surrounded by cats, alone and abandoned, no matter how empowered, successful, or wealthy she is miserable. And it's not just me saying this, your own body is telling you. A woman alone, abandoned, and surrounded by cats. What's their problem with cats? Why do they always pick on them? The same woman in her 30s with a couple of kids and a husband, even if they're not traveling the world like you, is immensely happier and more fulfilled in her life. Guess what? Having kids doesn't block your future projects. You can still reach your career and goals, just a bit later. All the effort and sacrifice you put into building your empire, as you said, became your own prison and should have been directed toward finding your husband and spouse, because a woman's life has stages. Now, after your 30s, you're already off the market because no good man in his right mind will want a woman who's broken inside. With so many demands and being entrepreneurial, combative, argumentative, and all the masculine qualities you've developed that in fact make you toxic and not very interesting for a stable, long-term relationship. Please, put a period or a comma when you're hating, because the same man can have a girl in her 20s who's sweet, kind, and cheerful, who wants to discover the world with him. In my case, I have one of those at home. Toxic, in fact. So let me get this straight. Doing man things like working, starting a business, or having discipline and goals makes me toxic and argumentative. So are you saying that men are toxic and argumentative? And about the part where I said I have one of those at home? You went to the pet shop and said, give me the 21. Submissive, kind, and cheerful. I'll take her home to show her the world. But she doesn't go out, right? Let's see if we can be done with this comment. To conclude, as harsh as it may sound to you now, it's too late for all that, and the only one to blame is you. But I'm sure your own family warned you about all this, and you didn't listen. The only solution for your case? Well, let's remember that this message is meant to help me and not to hurt me. So besides explaining my problem, it should also give me a solution. So let's see what it suggests. The only solution for your case is to find a good older man or a much older man and become his lover, his side partner, because he surely has a wife and it's not you, especially not as a candidate. It may sound harsh, but that's the reality of things, and reality is never beautiful. So they're suggesting that I find an old married man and become his lover. Freud. Thank you for all the patience and empathy you've given me, to the point that I can even understand and put myself in the shoes of those who insult and attack me. Well, I understand, I really do, that the world is very strange right now, that it's really hard to find a partner, that it's hard to find people who want to commit, that there are a lot of strange messages about men, women, and relationships. I understand that we're more confused than ever. I understand we face betrayals, rejections, abandonment, insecurities, and mixed messages. There's a lot of confusion about relationships and what it means to be a man or a woman. And I understand that in that scenario, such simplistic, forceful, direct, and reductionist speeches. They provide security, control, a sense of knowing the truth, having the solution, understanding the world, belonging to another group, and believing we won't suffer anymore. When we're not doing well, when we don't understand what's happening to us, when we're looking for answers, that's when these dangerous sectarian speeches will catch us. And be careful, it can happen on either side. I know women who have had bad experiences in relationships with men, and now they embrace misandrist speeches and see men as nothing but demons, and they don't want to have anything to do with them. Well, these two groups that seem to be on opposite sides are actually on the same side. They think in a similar way and behave in a similar way. Neither hatred towards women nor contempt for men are answers. They are symptoms of the same wound, the inability to connect as equals. While some claim women have lost their place and others say men are no longer needed, what we're truly losing is the chance to connect as human beings. You suffer because of the progressive nonsense you believe in. You are a product of social engineering, and they have won just by making you think what they want. If by the age of 30, you haven't gotten married and had children, you are a total failure as a woman, and that's a biological truth. Give up the unscientific nonsense and start having children. That heals you and fulfills you as a real woman. And my response, thank you very much for the advice. I'll start having children as soon as I can. And with that, today's video comes to an end. I hope you had a little fun. Honestly, I had a good laugh making it. Because even though we have to take these things seriously, I think we can also joke about it a little. Especially when things get a little absurd. I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts in the comments, and please, if you ever come across these kinds of messages online or from someone you know or a friend, remember this video and don't fall into that trap, because that's exactly what it is. Bye.